Hello, Women on Wheels friends. So I'm here to give you an update on two events I've did. The 24 Hours of Great Glen, which was presented by Moat Mountain. I think that their name is in the title too. And then the D2R2 ride I did yesterday. So I'll start with Great Glen. Super cool event. So it's up in New Hampshire. It starts at the base of the road that you drive your car up to Mount Washington. So it's at the Great Glen Trails. Super beautiful area if you've never been there. It's like a mile or so past Wildcat Mountain if you've skied there and know that area, near the Pinkham Notch hiking parking. So super cool area. It was really fun. First time event for me, so I learned a lot. I luckily had a couple stage 1 friends that were going to be there, so they kind of helped me with what to plan, prepare, what to do, how to set up. So the gist of the event. So there is a 24-hour and a 12-hour option. It starts at noon on Saturday, and it either goes till midnight or to noon the following day on Sunday. You can do a solo or you can do a team. I think they did 2-person, 4-person teams. Maybe they did 3. I don't know. There was a lot of options. So 12 or 24 hours solo or team. So I chose 12-hour solo, which means I was going to be riding from noon to midnight. So when you pull in, a bunch of people camp. So they have camping, like hardcore, like camping set up, tents, RVs, vans, all sorts of super cool stuff. People come with all their buddies, all their friends. They set up for the weekend. It's awesome. So on the left was the 24-hour parking. On the right was the 12-hour parking. So the first day, I got there Friday night. I went to like kind of scope things out, get a lay of the land. I didn't set my stuff up because I like didn't have a tent or anything. I was staying with my brother. But I scoped things out, got my number, all that good stuff. They had food trucks there Friday night. They had live music. They had Moat Mountain beer. It was super cool vibes. Like everyone was really friendly. They gave us a race shirt that we were able to tie dye, which I thought was so creative. So lots of fun stuff Friday night. And then Saturday with a noon start, it was a little weird. So I got up pretty early because I was still anxious and wanted to get all my stuff laid out because Friday was kind of a later night with driving to New Hampshire, registering, meeting up with my brother at a race he was doing, all that kind of stuff. So Saturday I got up early, went to the venue. One of my stage 1 friends was doing 12-hour. We had never met, but we had talked a lot on Facebook. So he was doing the 12, or no, he was doing, hold on, now I'm getting the camping messed up. He was doing solo 24. Oh, that's what's with the camping. The left was the teams and the right was the solo. So it wasn't 24 or 12. Left was teams, right was solo. So he was doing 24-hour solo. I was doing 12-hour solo. Sorry, messed that up. They divided us up to camp. That's the gist of it. So he was doing 24-hour solo and he had like his camper there, his wife there. They had an easy tent pop-up, all this food, mechanic stuff for the bike. They had a whole setup. So they were super, super nice and let me put like my cooler and chair under their easy tent pop-up. So it was nice to meet him and his wife, and she was super helpful for my ride. I had everything I needed, like much more than I needed, but I think I rather had been over prepared than not. I had all sorts of snacks that you could think of. I got the Pull and Spring like big waters that like you pull the tab and like a gallon jug because I think they had like water spigots, but I was like, like I want to kind of have everything right where I need it. I don't know what that water tastes like, whatever, just buy my own water. So I kind of had everything I needed. So I went there early Saturday to set all of that stuff up, make sure I had what I needed. I hung out with my brother for a little bit at work, which wasn't too far away. And then the event started at noon. I didn't really have any expectations. I had no idea what to think, what to expect, how I was going to feel. So they start you off a mass start of running around the lake. So they did that to just kind of divide people up, but it was still pretty hectic in the beginning. So we ran around, we grabbed our bikes, we got on, and we were off. As far as the route went, it was a mix of carriage roads and single track. The single track was definitely your New England single track, rooty, rocky, lots of bridges in the second half of it. The first half, I would say it was a lot of climbing on the carriage roads and then a few shorter single track sections. Then you go under this underground bridge to the other side of the road. There was like a lot of climbing, single track, and a ton of bridges in the woods. Each lap, then you went back under the bridge, and then you went to the other side and you did like another single track climb and kind of like a fun descent, and then you started over. Each lap was about 9 miles with a little over 1,000 feet of climbing. The lap took me, I think, anywhere from like 107 to 120 something. It got slower as the day went on, obviously. Definitely areas you could have like hammered on the bike and gone faster. But again, when you're in it solo for 12 or 24 hours, you kind of like take your time. So the first lap, I took my time, wanted to see everything, wanted to see the drops, wanted to see the techie parts. It was a little congested at the beginning of the first lap just because of all the people going out at once. But then after that, you rode a lot by yourself. Like there really wasn't a lot of opportunity where you were talking to people. People would pass you, people on teams, because they're going like really fast. Because they're doing a lap and then taking a break for a few hours. So those people would come whipping by you, whereas like the solo people, maybe not as much. So there was always people around. Like if you had stopped, within probably like a minute or so, you would see someone, but you weren't really riding with people. So my day was going good. Was doing a loop, stopping every loop for like 10 to 15 minutes to just kind of like refuel, check everything, make sure I was good to go, and I would go back out. One thing I did, I posted on Facebook, the water bridge. So they had this bridge in the water just kind of like floating. I never worked up the courage to do it because I was afraid if I fell off, like what happened to my bag? Does it sink? Does someone help you get it out? Can you just walk it out? I didn't know how deep it was. I never really asked. I like kind of had worked up the courage to do it the lap before it got dark because they closed it once it got dark. But by the time I got there, they were working on closing it. And I was just like, ugh. So I didn't really care about getting wet, but I was more worried about my bike. So I don't know. Maybe if I do it next year, I'll do it. So yeah, that was the bridge. I forgot that part at the end. So if you didn't do the bridge, you just kind of had to go around the lake. It just added a few extra seconds, but not the end of the world. Yeah, so each lap was going good. I was checking off the boxes, lap after lap after lap. Nothing too crazy to note there. I felt pretty good. I was just taking my time up the climbs. During each of my breaks, I was kind of like rolling out my back, and I had this spot like on like my quad above my knee that was kind of bothering me. So I was just kind of rolling that out, making sure I got some fuel, making sure I had water, and went out again. A couple of laps, I forgot my gloves after my breaks, which was kind of annoying, but nothing really, I didn't get blisters or anything. So that was good. Trying to think what else. So I think the lap that it was going to get dark, where we had to go out with our headlights on, that lap I changed into dry clothes. We had a beautiful day, but the nighttime definitely was going to get chilly, especially after you had been sweating all day. So I changed into dry clothes there and really took my time to make sure I was good to go for the first night lap. I ended up doing 2.5 laps in the dark. So that was good. I had one light on my helmet. Some people had suggested a light on the helmet and a light on the bike. I guess I could have bought more lights. I could have taken another light from my parents. I could have seen if my brother had a light. I was kind of fine with just the headlight. The couple times I practiced in the dark, that seemed good enough. And again, I was only going to do a couple laps in the dark, so I wasn't too stressed about it. I would probably develop a different strategy if I was doing 24 hours and needed the whole night in the dark. I would probably go with double lights and have like a better charging plan. But I had 2 lights and I used both of those. I think the light, I don't know if it was like fully charged or not. Again, like this was just being a new event, knowing I didn't have a lot in the dark. I figured I had enough lights, which I did. But the first light seemed to last like a lap and a half, and then it kind of dimmed down. And when it dimmed down, I just kept riding, but it definitely got more challenging because I could only see so far ahead of me. And I didn't realize like how inhibiting that was until I was like missing a few things I had been riding all day. But then I switched the light out for the last lap in the dark. Riding in the dark is weird, right? Like everything gets a lot harder. I was doing okay with my front wheel, but my back wheel like kept hitting a lot of stuff. And then you're like physically getting tired too because you've been riding your bike for like 10 hours. And the last lap, I did like one of those really slow falls, like right onto like my derailleur side. Luckily, I didn't like mess too much up, but it was just kind of like, oh, let me just be off this bike. Um, so yeah, I ended up doing 8 laps. I finished at 11:54 p.m. And if I wanted to, I could have gone out and done one more lap. So you had to be out doing your last lap by midnight, but then you would have to be back by 1:15. So technically I could have gone out again. I would have really had to push to keep that lap. I think whatever that math is, like 120, which was like, I probably physically could have done that if I like made an effort and really wanted to, but I was like, I really had nothing left to prove to myself. I had rode noon to midnight. The girl that won was at 10 laps. I was at 8 laps. So like the motivation wasn't there. Like externally, internally, the motivation really wasn't there either. Like I had did what I wanted to do. I had still a pretty big day on the bike. Let me pull up what I did for my stats here because I posted this too. If you guys don't follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you should, because I try to post all this stuff. Yeah, so I did 8 laps. It was 10:26 of ride time, 11:49 of elapsed time, 71.35 miles, and 8,419 feet of climbing were the stats of the day. So yeah, riding in the dark was definitely something that was like scary to me at first, but I'm like super glad I did this event. Everyone was so nice. Like even the people winning my category, like the guy was cruising. He went by me so many times and he was always so nice. He would come up behind me. No rush. When you get a chance, I'm going to sneak by. Like people were just nice and they understood if you were in the single track, like it might take a minute for me to like move over because they understand too. Like we're out there like riding and trying to cycle. So yeah, so that was that. Super cool event. Like, yeah, I totally get if you don't want to go do it solo, but like get a bunch of friends together and go out there and do a team. And again, people made like a weekend out of this. I was definitely like odd man out, not having some like crazy setup and a bunch of friends there. Like I just kind of showed up by myself. My brother came right, it was when it was getting dark, I think around 7, and he stayed till midnight, which was great because he kind of helped me with fuel. Ella's joining the reviews. Say hi, Ella. Um, he helped me like, hey, like fill up waters, get food, whatever. They had given us a food ticket for Saturday night for $14 at the food truck. So my brother like went and got me food for a lap and stuff like that. So like he was really helpful from like 7 to midnight, and then he loaded up the car for me, so as soon as I was done we could leave, since we had like a 40-minute drive back to his place. So that was nice to have him at the end. But the rest of the day I kind of did solo, and my teammate's wife, you know, she helped a little here and there, but I didn't want to like ask her too much. So yeah, super cool event. On Saturday, again, I was riding most of the day, but you could kind of hear what was going on. They were doing all sorts of events for the kids. They had movies for the kids, fun games for the kids. They had a 24-minute kids bike race. Like they really do make it like a family affair, and they understand people are there for a day or two, like waiting on their friends or family to finish. So they try to make it like a bunch of events for them. Food trucks, beers. Sunday morning was a breakfast food truck, more beers, lunch food truck. So they had tons of stuff. Like totally check this event out. It's super cool. I talked to the race director after, because I was obviously like wearing Women on Wheels stuff, and she's like, get more ladies here next year. Like it's super fun. So yeah, we'll see what my schedule allows for next year. On-road triathlon age group nationals was that same weekend this year. We'll see what it is next year. So that might be something for a few different reasons. I'm leaning into a little more next year, but if they're on different weekends, I'll probably do both. So it was super fun. Check it out. If you have questions, let me know. You know, it was a race, but it didn't really have like crazy race vibes to me, maybe because I was just out there doing my own thing. And, you know, I drank water and I ate gels and things like that, but it wasn't like this rigid plan like I have for on-road triathlon. And I think I managed things pretty well and had a good day. So definitely more of a fun event for me. Obviously, like people go there with goals and things like that, which is totally fine. But this off-road stuff for me, I just have a little bit of a different mindset than on-road triathlon. So yeah, that was Great Glen. Check it out. 24 hours of Great Glen. I think it's presented by Moat Mountain. And again, 12 or 24-hour options. You don't have to dive into the full day right off the bat. Okay, and then we had D2R2, which was yesterday. I'm pretty sure I did a video on D2R2 last year too. Super cool event, and it is just that. D2R2 is an event. There is no timing, there is no bib numbers. You have a start time, but you roll out whenever you're ready. So my start time was 7. You could have rolled out at 6:50. You could have rolled out at 7:10. It doesn't matter. You get there, you get your stuff, you get ready, you check in, and roll out when you want. D2R2 raises money for the Franklin Land Trust. So a lot of like conservatory land, and they have some marks throughout the ride of land, like that they help or conserve based on the money from the Franklin Land Trust. Obviously this year, this stuff is more important than ever because we've had historic flooding. So major shout out to the race directors for pulling this event off, still having mostly gravel routes despite all the flooding and issues that they've had this year. So kudos to them. Kudos to the community members for still allowing us to come in that town, 2,000 people riding bikes. Thank you, because it's such a fun event. So they said this year was a little more pavement riding than they had hoped, but I think mine was just under 60% of pavement. So that means just under 60% of like gravel riding, just over 40% of pavement. So like totally fine with me. I still had a blast. Last year I did the 180K. This year I went with the 160K. 10 less miles and 1 less ginormous climb at the end is the 160K. So again, stats on the day, it ended up being 97.6 miles, 10,617 feet of climbing, 8:21 ride time, 9:17 elapsed time. So again, those are stats for me, but it's not a race. There was no placings. We were all just out there having a good day. At D2R2, there is a route for everyone, from the family fun ride to the 80K, everything in between. There's a gazillion ride options, and bring everyone out and do it. It is awesome. My ride had 4 stops. So they had at mile 28 was an aid station. At mile 48 was a town with like a bakery and a general store. So they didn't have food, but you could, like, the race didn't have like free food at the stop, but you could stop at the bakery, which I did. I'll get to. Lunch stop was at mile 58. Their lunches are top notch. And then we had a final stop at mile 80. And then at the end, lots of good food. So the food is like, I mean, the riding up in this area, this is in like Greenfield, I think it's Greenfield, Deerfield area. You go past the new treehouse like 5 minutes and then you're there. So the food there though is like top notch. So in the morning, they've got like these breakfast egg thing that's so good, coffees, bagels, muffins, waters, all sorts of good stuff. The aid stations are stocked with like your normal, gels, fruit snacks, regular fruit, pretzels, granola bars, water, drink mix. I saw a lot of, I think you call it LMNT, a lot of their stuff, Gatorade. They had all sorts of stuff, seltzers, sodas, like tons of stuff at the stops. The lunch stop, you had made to order sandwiches, chicken salad, quinoa, pasta salad. Again, all your regular aid station gel type stuff. So they do a great job with their aid stations there. Again, I don't know the ins and outs of how many aid stations on each ride. I just told you what the 160K was, but I believe every ride gets a lunch stop. It just like is in different locations depending on your ride. So, and then at the end, you get, if you're over 21, you get a beer commemorative glass, and then you get a ticket for like 1 free beer. And I think it's the Berkshire Brewery, something is the beer they have. They have some like dandelion hazy IPA, which is what I got. And then the post-race food, they still had like the quinoa and pasta salads. They had meatballs. They had barbecue chicken. They had mac and cheese, apple crisp. They had all sorts of yummy stuff. So the food is great. The ride and the routes are great. It's a beautiful area, lots of climbing, good gravel, very rideable gravel. For my route, there was one downhill that got a little sketchy just because of clearly like washed outs. And so it was already a little chunky. And then with the washouts, it was hard to find a line. I rode most of it. I got caught behind someone that got hung up. So I kind of stayed on the bike with one foot out and walked down a little bit until people sorted themselves out and I found a good area to hop back on. There's a lot of climbing. There was one climb again, someone in front of me got popped off. So I kind of lost my line. So I had to walk a little that hill, but then it evened out before it climbed again. So I got to hop back on. But overall, I mean, literally like 97% of the course I rode. So probably 98. Like it was very, very little I walked. So yeah, very rideable course. It's just climbing for those longer distances. I haven't really looked at the shorter distances to look at the climbing, but I think because of the area, like you're going to hit some climbs, but it's beautiful. It's fun. The views are beautiful. The farms are beautiful. And again, it's an event. There's no timing. There's no pressure. Go out with your friends, go meet friends on the route. Like this is what I love about these events. For me, I went by myself, like no one was there with me. My parents are away. I had one stage one teammate, but he was doing the 180K, so different route and started an hour before me. So I went out solo. There were some people I chatted with like here and there, but no one that I really rode with, which was fine, right? I think sometimes I really enjoyed being by myself. You know, there were times it got a little lonely where I'd like, oh, it'd be nice to chat with someone. But overall, again, it was just beautiful. And you had the aid stations to stop and chat with people. And I was always around people, like people in front of you, people behind you. Like you could always kind of see people, even though you weren't like riding with them per se. So yeah, mile 28, stopped at an aid station, and then it started raining. I was not prepared for the rain. I looked at the weather, the race start, it seemed fine and partly cloudy and 70 all day. So I was like, oh, good, I'm perfect. Yeah, lesson learned. I'm probably like, I'm gonna buy a really light rain jacket. They have one at Pactimo that I've been eyeing for a while now, just because now I like have a reason to get it. But yeah, it started raining on mile 28, which was like fine. And then it kind of like got to the steady rain, which was still fine. But then I started to get cold and it stopped raining and the sun didn't come out. And then we did a massive descent and I was quite cold going into mile 48, which was the bakery. There was a woman riding with the Gravel Boston team and it was the only other woman I saw like on my route. But that was a pretty quick group of guys she was riding with. And I walked up to the bakery and she's like, they have fresh coffee in there. I am freezing. How are you not cold? And I was like, well, I'm cold too, but I like just descended that hill. So maybe I dried off a little, but once you stopped, it got cold. So I got a cherry oat bar, which was delicious at the bakery and stood in the bakery for a few minutes, which was nice and warm. And then we had about 10 miles to lunch. That was at mile 58. Again, lunch was great, but I was like, I can't stop for too long because I'm going to get cold. I need to keep pedaling. And you knew once you hit the next climb, which wasn't far away, when you climbed 10,000 feet, that you would warm up. So luckily after lunch, the sun did come out and I warmed up and things were good. But I definitely want this lightweight rain jacket that you can pretty much like stuff up to like the size of your phone essentially. And put it in a camelback or a back pocket when you don't need it. But I think lesson learned there, like always carry either a lightweight jacket or if you don't have that, like arm warmers or something, because I definitely could have used that for a few miles of the ride. Not as cold as my Lake Placid training camp. If you guys remember when I went for my trip with my friend last June, when I was like the coldest I've ever been. It wasn't that cold, but it was a pretty close second. So yeah, little weather elements, good lesson to learn all these years of racing later. But again, rest of the ride was great. After lunch, yeah, warmed up. There was this massive climb at mile 70. My back was kind of bothering me before and I did a good stretch at lunch and luckily like that went away. And then at mile 70, there was a gigantic climb. Um, I love climbing, but I'm also on a cyclocross bike, so I don't have a big gear range. So a lot of the climbs for me are just like total grinds uphill. I don't have that quote unquote granny gear on that bike. So whatever, it's a challenge, but this was like a long grinding climb. Like the tops of my quad started to hurt a bit, but I knew that was just because of the effort I was putting out. But then I got this like the feeling of a side stitch, but it was like in the center of my stomach. It was so painful. But I got to the top of the climb and I knew it flattened out and we were getting near the next aid station. So I tried to take some like good deep breaths and set up as much as I could. I ate a gel because I was like, I don't feel sick or nauseous or like, I depleted it and I need like salt or sugar or something, but like, let me take a gel just in case. Kind of like ride a little easier than I was. And luckily by the next aid station, it was mile 80, that kind of like went away because I was like, this is going to be a long 18 miles if like I feel crummy. And of course you're like almost done, but you're tired. So it was a weird feeling. Like it was just kind of like again, a side stitch, but like in the center of like the top center of my stomach. It was so weird. But it went away and it was never an issue after. And I felt fine after. So I think between like taking it easy, just getting my breath back, and then I took like, I don't know, 10 or so minutes at that last aid station, I felt fine. Always learning something new about yourself. And then the rest of the ride was like downhill, right? There was some like roller climbs, but there was like really no big climbs after that. Couple rollers, one like little bit of a longer incline, but nothing too crazy, and a lot of good downhill to finish. So it was a pretty quick finish. But I had my dinner and a beer and talked to a couple of people, and came home. Did a good hot tub session, foam rolling, lacrosse balling, stretching last night, and I feel pretty good today. Taking today to catch up, which is nice. A good recovery day. But yeah, D2R2 recommend. Check it out next year. Again, it's like, I think it's Greenfield area. It's in Mass, in that area. A zillion ride options. It's an event. It's not a race. Great food for a good cause. And you get to check out a great area, not far from many of us in Connecticut. Again, yes, I ate gels and drank hydration for this, but it's like a lot less stringent of a plan for on-road triathlon because like you have the aid stations, you're not swimming before, you're not running after. So I pretty much ate gels roughly every 45 minutes on the bike, and I had a drink mix bottle, and then I had my Camelback filled with regular water, and then I ate at every aid station. Oh, also life hacks. I didn't really want the gels or the bars they had at the aid stations, but I took them because I'm using them as giveaways for Women on Wheels. So anything they had, I took. I was like, I'm not eating this, but I can make good use out of it. So but yeah, so those are those two events. Great Glen, D2R2, lots of fun off-road stuff, mountain bike and gravel. If you have questions, let me know. If you have specific questions about those events, let me know. If you want to do them next year and you have questions, let me know. As always, I'm open to chat. Hope this was helpful. Hope you enjoyed listening. Cyclocross season starts next weekend. I probably won't do recaps on all of those. I'll just do like my Facebook and Instagram recaps. Or maybe once a month I'll do like a cyclocross review on what I've raced. And then I have Xterra Worlds, so I'll definitely do a video review for that. All right, have a good day, Women on Wheels. Bye.